I'm Addison, and my presentation today is going to be on the country of Lithuania. In order to begin, I'd like to state the purpose of this presentation. Whenever you start out a relationship, you don't immediately delve into what that person's history is or where their family came from. In fact, you rarely even know what their favorite color is. Knowing someone's history is forging a connection that's deeper than just what is your favorite color, or even how are you doing. I'd like to take this connection and interpret it from a relationship to the country of Lithuania. Let's forge a connection with this country in order to understand where its history has taken it to where it is now. To start, let's define history. According to the textbook Intercultural Competence, Interpersonal Communications Across Cultures, it states that history is the unique experiences that have become part of a culture's collective wisdom. Let's express this through the twofold goal of first sharing a brief retelling of Lithuania's history in order to gain insight into what life started out like, and then to observe the effects that Lithuania's history has had through its displays of resilience, modernization, and the dynamic of its cultural paradigm shift. Let's begin at the start. I said that backwards. The first mention of Lithuania was in 1009 when Baltic tribes occupied the lands of the current Baltic states. At this time, only one small tribe was known as the Lithuanians. It was then turned into the largest and longest lasting group of pagans in the entire continent of Europe. Lithuanians' largest threat at that time were the Crusaders due to their pagan beliefs. By the 14th century, Lithuania then became the largest country in all of Europe. It spanned all the way from the Baltic to the Black Sea. And at the end of this century, Lithuanian rulers then adopted Christianity, but they did this by choice and not by force. In the 16th century, the city of Moscow began to become a new threat as it rapidly gained power, and in response, the countries of Lithuania and Poland ended up forming a commonwealth in the year 1569. This commonwealth did not go so well, and after losing a series of wars and other personal discrepancies between the two countries, in the late 18th century, the country of Lithuania was then divided among the three superpowers of the Kingdom of Prussia, the Austrian Empire, and the Russian Empire. The main Lithuanian lands fell under Russian control. Now, Russian control was no better at all, and by the year 1865, the Lithuanian language was banned. Lithuanian was only kept alive through book carriers. These were people who would smuggle banned books, and they even set up illegal schools inside of villages. It was these conditions at that time that spurred Lithuania on to a national revival. In this revival, after World War I, on February 16, 1918, ended up spurring Lithuania to then become an independent nation state. It was once again a free country, the Republic of Lithuania. This period of freedom was sadly cut short, though, by World War II. In the year 1940, when Lithuania brutally became occupied by the Soviet Union, then Nazi Germany, and then the Soviet Union again. The Soviet occupation brought about the exile of hundreds of thousands of Lithuanians, and a majority of those who remained in the country were killed through the genocide led by Stalin, and the Nazi Germany occupation was not much better either. But then, on March 11, 1990, Lithuania once again became the first Soviet-controlled territory to finally restore her independence. Let's see where this takes us today. The greatest comparison that I can find between history and now is the Hill of Crosses. This lies on the road to Latvia. It was here at this hill that it's thought to have begun around the mid-1800s that families would come and lay down crosses in honor and respect for those who had passed on due to the rebellion, the resistance against Russian occupation. The Soviets even attempted to bulldoze this site multiple times, and yet every time crosses would always reappear. It still stands there today as a sign of peaceful resistance. In fact, I took this picture there in 2016. Let's move on to modernity. At the end of the year 1930, what is today seen as valuable began to emerge in Kaunas. This was the interwar capital of Lithuania. It wasn't Vilnius, which it is today. A young, newly independent Lithuania drove her people to desire to follow the trends of that era, modernism and the movement that surrounded it. Yet the people were unable to leave their past behind. Lithuania's rich history was just too embedded to simply pass over. But modernizing was not about the elimination of history in Lithuania. Instead, it became an attempt to become equal partners between modernization and the history that it shared. And in this way, it would be able to express its national culture with the entire world. This visible cultural display is also prevalent within the belief and value systems of the people within Lithuania. As the article Konos Modernism states, it is not enough to simply search for ideas in your personal experience alone and the things that you have witnessed, but rather to look back to eras, previous times. Hofstede's cultural taxonomy. A common definition of culture includes the principles of having a set of shared beliefs, rules, values, and traditions. This element of sharedness is what's most important, and as defined by Hofstede, it is a collective programming. This acts in a way to distinguish people that are within groups. Now, he used this method in order to define his cultural taxonomy. The specific taxonomy that we're going to look at here is power distance. Power distance is defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. Lithuania's power distance ranks at a 42, and this is representative of the other Baltic states as well, and it's due to their sense of loyalty and submission to authority that was in large part because of the Russian Soviet domination that occurred through these countries. Moving forward, let's look into the paradigm shift of Lithuania's culture. According to the article Societal Culture in Iceland and Lithuania, previous research has been done that asserts that cultures are very stable and large changes do not usually occur. That is, unless an extraordinary event happens. With Lithuania in mind, this article further recognized that the restoration of independence of Lithuania was one of those extraordinary events. In fact, the authors even say that the restoration of independence 25 years ago, according to their time, deeply embedded values such as a sense of security, conformity, obedience, self effacement, and deference to the decisions of higher level authorities, which overall can be described as bureaucratic model, had to be replaced by innovativeness, entrepreneurship, and strategic thinking about the future of the organization. This transformation means that the complexities of Lithuanian culture through the years were flipped entirely upside down as historical structures, systems, and practices were being replaced with unknowns. This caused this period of time to be highly uncertain for those Lithuanians who were involved. The article Cultural Dimensions of Lithuania gives the suggestion that because of this transformation, societal culture in Lithuania today is more individualistic than collectivistic, thus opposing the long-held view of Lithuania as a collectivistic country. Another example of these dynamic changes in the Lithuanian culture would be in looking at Hofstede's uncertainty avoidance model, which shows that the people of Lithuania are not ordinarily risk takers, which means they don't have much of an interest in taking chances or even being entrepreneurial. Yet, look at Lithuania today. The culture has been completely reinvented as a unique, independent country. Well, let's do a recap of of the twofold goals that are now accomplished. We went through a brief retelling of Lithuania's history in order to gain insight into what life started out like in Lithuania. And then we observed the effects that Lithuania's history has had through its displays of resilience, modernization, and then finally its dynamic of recent cultural paradigm shift that has occurred through its independence. I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.